Welcome to Truth Sentinel, watching over the truth in the news. My name's Scott, and I'm the host of today's show, and I've got one of my co-hosts here, the Truth Sentinel Cat. Anything to say? No. The Truth Sentinel Cat's been very busy this week, hunting. I think honing his survival skills. He's brought back lots of mice and rats, and even a bat. He's pretty chill today, actually. Let me just see how long he wants to sit there for. My other co-host will be joining us soon. I'll just give a quick rundown of the news, have a look at what's going on in the world. This is another call-in show today. We're just going to be looking at, as usual, just general events that are going on in the world and give our take. It's been a while since our last show. Probably... Cat, you're actually freaking me out looking at me like that. It's been quite a while, more than a month now. There's just been things going on behind the scenes, including the world going a bit crazy whilst we've been away. Although it was pretty crazy anyway. Seriously, Cat, you can't just stare at me like that. Welcome everyone in the chat. I'll come and say hello to everyone in a moment. Okay, good. Thank you, Kieran. Looking and sounding fine. Always good to get some feedback. Let me go straight to the news first. As usual, it's a call-in show, so I'll invite you to come and join us. Keep your comments coming in the chat as well. Just going to stare at me, I think, this cat. Yeah, so I'm going to start off as usual by sharing my screen and just commenting on what I can see on the BBC website. I think the cat's getting restless now. Probably gonna. Oh, yeah, you're going. Okay, fair enough. Thanks for taking part. So, okay, here's the BBC web page. As usual, I do like to remind people who funds the BBC. So funding sources. Sorry, I should have probably got this ready. As usual, we make things up as we go along here. We don't have a lot of funding here at Truth Sentinel, so yeah, we make it up as we go along. Funding sources for the BBC. I'll just see if I can get that page back up. Where our money comes from. Here we are. I'm just going to share this again. I like to remind people where the BBC get their funding from, because it does really affect what kind of stories they put out. And I think a lot of people haven't looked into this. I mean, I have never seen a negative story about the jabs, for example. And look at their Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think these amounts of money are possibly in the millions, or I don't know. I don't think that's just thousands. I think that's more like how many thousands of pounds. So that would actually 1.5 million there, I think. I'll have to check on that. But anyway, the top 10 donors are people like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, NORAD, USAID. I think Seth might have mentioned something about them last time. Global Affairs Canada. Might be one for Bob there. United Nations, UK. Department for International Development, European Union, Swedish. This is another strange one. Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency. UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office. That's like one of the biggest UK government agencies. Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So don't be surprised, for example, if you... And in fact, I have seen this. I have seen stories about how Norway is like an amazing country. You're going to see those kind of stories when you've got donors that are funding the media. Let's go back to the main page anyway. Welcome, Pepe. Let me just say a quick hello to people in the chat as well. Welcome, Pepe Epstein. Been a listener for years. Thank you. We appreciate new listeners and old listeners. As soon as you said BBC, the cat got upset. Yeah, we do have a lot of cat listeners, and they're not afraid to give their point of view. Welcome, Seth, who'll be joining us in a moment. Welcome, Bob. I'll be playing one of Bob's tracks later. I also got a message from another Truth Sentinel listener about playing a musical track. I'm going to play that next time. But any other listeners out there who've got some musical talent, we really like to showcase people's music on this show. I've got more of Seth's music to play in coming shows. I might even have a track of my own. Yeah, I might even ask Bob to try and produce one of my one and only song, which I'll play on Truth Sentinel. And I might even try and see if there's any professional musicians out there who want a song. They could take my song and hopefully make me millions, because frankly my finances are pretty bad at the moment. I'm going to do a request for donations later. I very rarely do that, but I might do that later, and I'll explain why later. I'm not asking for millions, although if there are any billionaires listening, we do appreciate a couple of million if you've got it spare. Someone who did have a couple of million spare was the Queen, and I'll be talking about her in a moment. Let me just go back to the news for a second. Just going to talk for about 5 minutes, then I'm going to bring Seth in and see how he's doing. Okay, so yeah, let's just have a quick look. Zelensky vows to treat Russian deserters fairly, and there's been a big push on the BBC this week about, and you can see the story here, prisoner freed by Russia treated worse than a dog. Look, I've lived in Ukraine. I've got a lot of Ukrainian friends. I even have Ukrainian family connections. So I do sympathize with what's going on there. And of course, it's terrible what's been happening to Ukrainian prisoners of war. I'm sure they've been treated badly, some of them. I'm sure some of them you won't even see because they were probably killed. But we're getting a very one-sided view from the BBC. There was the video some time ago where they showed what the Azov battalion were doing to Russian prisoners of war, and they were shooting them in the legs, torturing them and killing them. So it's happening on both sides, but we're just seeing one side of it. And I would say that we need to remember that in war, these terrible things happen on both sides. You shouldn't pretend that this isn't happening on the Ukrainian side. But we've got a story here. Zelensky vows to treat Russian deserters fairly. I very much doubt it. I'm not being funny, but part of this story is about how badly Ukrainian fighters are being treated by Russia. Will generate a lot of hate anyway. So even if the Ukrainian military were looking after Russian prisoners of wars, which I very much doubt, and in fact we've seen the videos that shows they weren't, even if that was happening, the stories about Russia treating Ukrainian prisoners of wars badly will just mean you'll get the same kind of treatment happening on the other side, and it does anyway. War is a terrible thing. It should be avoided at all costs, and in my opinion, it wasn't avoided at all costs. And I think the war that's happening, or the escalation that's happening, but soon to develop into a full-scale war, possibly even nuclear, and we might talk about that later, that's just been manufactured, and it's been encouraged by world leaders. They're not there to make the world a peaceful place. If they were, this situation in Ukraine wouldn't be happening, and we wouldn't be standing on the brink of nuclear war. Meanwhile, North Korea fires suspected ballistic missile. Looks like they want to get in on the action too. Let's see what other stories we've got here before I bring in Seth. Kate Middleton, Catherine, Princess of Wales. Okay, I'm going to have a small rant here about the royal family. The last few weeks have been dominated by the death of the Queen, and even my own family members are shocked that I wasn't really supporting all the nice things that were being said about this lovely old lady, because I just think a lot of it is made up. Everything you see in the media about the Queen being a church-going, lovely lady, it's all propaganda. It's all public relations coming from Clarence House. And I thought I'd run through a couple of the reasons why I don't like the Queen, and particularly don't like the royal family. But the Queen is the head, and she knows what was going on. So, as I know, Kieran calls her Queen Elizabeth after David Icke's link to the reptilian idea that they're all reptilians in the royal family anyway. It wouldn't actually surprise me. So anyway, why don't I like the royal family and the Queen? Well, my question to supporters of the royal family be, why do you like them? It's an insane idea. You've got a ridiculously rich family, and we have to donate money in the UK to them from our taxes. That doesn't make any sense. Make a rich family richer. Explain that to me. They are directly linked. This is no lie. They're directly linked to the character that Count Dracula was based on, Vlad the Impaler. Very closely related to the royal family. Prince Charles even did a documentary about it. He used to impale people on spikes. The royal family themselves used to behead and torture people throughout history. It wouldn't surprise me if that's still going on. Paedophile connections. Prince Charles' best friends with Jimmy Savile. He gave a house to a convicted paedophile called Reverend Pete Ball. Prince Andrew hung out with America's and the world's most prolific child molester, Jeffrey Epstein. And you've only heard a very little about what these people actually did get up to. Louis Mountbatten, he was a paedophile. Rolf Harris, the Queen's official artist, was a paedophile. You could go on. There's too much connection. And the Queen would have known about this. She would for sure. Then there's just the idea that you can die with half a billion pounds in your bank account, properties all over the world, and people still think you're a loving, kind person. I'm sorry, I don't think so. So then there's the ridiculous hypocrisy that happens in the royal family. They often campaign against hunting, against collecting ivory. They've got the largest ivory collection in the world, one of the largest. They regularly hunt big game. So it's just they're no strangers to hypocrisy. Anyway, I don't want to keep on going about that. There was processions. There was during the funeral procession, there was a goat at the beginning. A goat is a very common representation of the devil. Explain that one. There's lots of pageantry and rituals, and all because they have a certain kind of blood, and apparently they're more important than the rest of us, and we have to bow down to them. Explain that to me. I thought we lived in a world of equality. Just a very quick scan through further, and then I'll bring Seth in. There's so much to talk about. We've got the fact that we could well be, we are at war. A lot of people probably don't realize it, but we're actually in a world war at the moment. It's probably going to go nuclear this year or next year. There's probably going to be an economic crash. What else can I say? Yeah, could Russia use tactical nuclear weapons? Yeah, I think so. Personally, I think they're all in on it themselves. So I don't think Putin is the good guy for those people that do think he is. No, I don't think so. Okay, I'm just going to quickly list anything else I was going to mention. Then I'll ask Seth what he thinks about all of these things I've mentioned. There was a story on the BBC News about calling about the far right. And I was just almost wanted to have another rant about how this is just a label to discredit people these days. There's another story on the website, the BBC website, about a CIA museum, and it's got all the top secret things like the gun that killed Osama bin Laden. But members of the public aren't allowed in the CIA museum. It's only journalists. And for me, that's just literally a controlled release of what they want you to believe to journalists who then can go and tell the public. There's stories about Biden saying COVID has ended. Maybe I'm just going to bring Seth in and see if he has any comments on some of the things I've been talking about there, and just in general. just in general, let's say hello to Seth. Seth,
How you
can you
doing
hear
there,
me?
Scott? Yes, I can.
Pretty good, pretty good. A lot's happened since we last spoke, and in some ways, I quite like that, and I'm sure it'll be the same next month.
Yeah.
Anything that I mentioned there that you kind of wanted to comment on before we just see what else has caught your eye?
Okay. Well, I mean, for the Queen of England stuff, I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, I lost a little rat recently, so I mean, we had him for about 4 years. His name Martin. He's a really cool little rat. I
I would
cared
I
a
would
whole lot
actually
more about
rather,
that than the
yeah,
Queen of England, man. So,
I do as well, and I never even met your rat, but I actually would rather give 2 minutes silence to your rat and than the Queen. I just a lot more. I have a lot more respect for your rat. So sorry to hear about that.
it's all good. Also, I wanted to mention something because I found this out this morning is that a cousin of mine was actually assaulted by a stalker of hers who used Snapchat and one of the like what they call like the ghost trails type features on Snapchat there to stalk her and track her down to assault her and whatnot. Thankfully, he was arrested. They're going on trial and all this. I mean, I feel like I'm the last person to find out about this, and that's crazy. But yeah, don't just to anybody out there, especially any ladies that listen to this, don't use the Snapchat, Instagram bullshit with the public features and everything like that. Just keep in mind who you are, what your identity is, where your information is going out and everything, because there are some bad people out there that would very much so like to know where you are and what you're doing. And I'm talking people that are, not quite as bad as the government, but pretty bad.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. And yeah, definitely, if I was a woman, I'd be a lot more careful about stuff I post online, especially to do with anything that tracks your location as well. I've noticed there's a lot more hacking going on at the moment. I've had just
The
my
Russians,
friends
Scott.
face.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, it's the
yeah.
Russians, of course. Yeah, a lot of my friends' Facebook accounts. The Truth Sentinel website. If anyone goes to the Truth Sentinel website, www.truthsentinel.co.uk, have a look at the forum. It's just been totally decimated by somebody. Looks like some kind of Filipino hackers, or just people who wanted to destroy the forum on there.
For
It's
real?
just it for real. Yeah, it's all full of all the questions and everything, all full of just meaningless stuff. It's just all been, yeah. They've just attacked it basically. So I'll have to go in there and clean it up at some point. Um,
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
but
man.
someone's done that anyway. Yeah, sorry. Please continue, Seth.
No, you're good. I mean, as far as what was going on worldwide, talking about that, when it comes to the Ukraine situation, Russia and whatnot, we have a little bit to talk about. First, I thought this was interesting. It's something that I saw on the BBC website that you didn't cover. That's at #1 there of a Pink Floyd founder cancels Poland concerts after Ukraine war remarks. The fact that after listening to Roger Waters, his entire take on this stuff is not too different from ours really at all. Of the fact that there are bad things happening on both sides, and certain people are using a lot of anti-Russian propaganda to try and make people hate Russians to justify any aggressions done against Russian people, rather than going, okay, the government of Russia is doing the bad thing. They don't make this distinction at all, and they don't give a shit to make this distinction because they actively are trying to encourage war, to encourage
They are, yeah.
bigotry, to encourage racism, to get people to justify whatever sort of war crime insanity they're going to unleash upon a bunch of people. And I'm tired of it.
That's something I wanted to mention, because I'm sure we've got some Ukrainian listeners, because this show actually started off with me reporting from Ukraine.
Yeah.
I used to live there, and I wanted to stress that when I say I don't like all this stuff about Russia is evil, I actually say that because I don't want to see, and I can see it already happening on my Facebook pages. Yeah. They're all sharing pictures of this guy that was badly treated. The only thing that is going to do is make everything worse. I've already seen some of my Ukrainian friends just becoming more and more full of hatred. And this is exactly what they want to happen. They're doing it deliberately. They're manipulating Ukrainians to make them hate Russians. A lot of them have Russians closely knit in their families. It's going to create massive division. And this isn't happening by accident. So when I when I don't support these stories and I'm like, yeah, they're doing it on the other side, it's because it's going to end in disaster. It already is, you know, it's just a mess.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And
I'm somebody that grew up under the war on terror and all that in the United States here. They did everything they could to instill hatred of Muslims and just generally Middle Eastern people, and anybody brown that speaks a different language that's kind of different there on any tip was instantly terrorism. And they pushed that for over a decade until they absolutely created as much bigotry and hatred as they possibly could squeeze out of that stone, and then dropped it. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, we have a problem with bigotry against those poor Middle Eastern people in the United States. It's terrible. Oh my God. So they get to play both sides of this. They get to milk the other side of it and go, oh my God, can you believe all this hatred and monstrosity going around? Despite the fact it's the government and government sponsored media outlets that have been promoting some of the most bigoted, hateful shit you ever heard in your entire life in order to justify an entire group of people being dehumanized and killed. And we're going to talk about other nations that do this sort of stuff. It's interesting to see how Roger Waters talks about this, just has the balls to dare to talk about any of it. And now Poland and several other places have pulled shows from him. And now he's persona non grata as what is it? I believe the Polish, what was that? Prime Minister right there. City councilor Lukas, oh my God, how the hell would you say this? Lucas Montuk, ooh, whatever, says, let him sing in Moscow. Of course, this is the sort of shit we're talking about, where they're trying to destroy people while claiming that they're the good guys. Where it's, see, we're all about inclusion and representation and democracy. It's Russia that's all about that evil and oppression. But by the way, anybody that speaks out against this on any level, destroy, crush him, don't let him have an opinion. Oh, but yeah, they're so worried about, representation, and oh my God, that's why they're defending those poor Ukrainians. Dude, I'm here to tell you, anybody that's Ukrainian listening to this, the United States government does not give a shit about you. Doesn't give a shit about your country. The United Kingdom
nor does Europe.
Exactly. Any of these people, these NATO people and stuff, they do not give a shit. Most of them consider you essentially Russians. And I'm dead fucking serious when I say, Scott, you know what I'm talking about, man. They treat them like, Russians, Ukrainians. What's the difference?
Oh, yeah, it's all the same to people in Europe, and especially
a bunch
the
of Eastern Europeans, e-blockers, as they call them, right? They don't care. They barely even consider them white, for Christ's sakes. And I'm laying the cards on the table with this. This is what it is. They don't care. And they'll justify anything now to try and say, oh my God, those poor Ukrainians, despite the fact that the second it is convenient for them to have the Ukrainians as an enemy for anything. I mean, they've got the Azov battalion there. They can flip the script, and now all of a sudden it's, we've always been at war with Ukraine. We've always been allied with Russia. And they'll flip the script on a fucking dime, and they will. They will, and nobody's going to change anything. Nobody's going to act like, oh my God, I've got to stand up for those poor Russians now when it comes to Ukrainian people, or vice versa. And all it's doing is putting people further and further and further apart. I mean, the United States, great example of this. There are people still now that lived through the Vietnam War era that still are insanely bigoted against Southeast Asian people, because, everybody may as well be Vietnamese. Right? That's good. Laotians, fucking Thai people, whatever. It's all the fucking same to some of these guys. And it's bigotry. It's racism. They created it so they can justify a bunch of young men joining up into the military to go die fighting some rich asshole's war overseas over resources. And for a fact, that's exactly what Ukraine and all this is about right now, is resources. We have some of the biggest natural gas holding companies and biggest gas companies in the world. We have
that may be one of the
Europe.
things.
Yeah, we have the breadbasket of Europe, and we have the single buffer state that exists between NATO and the Russian sphere. The one major buffer state that they have. I mean, we get to see it happening right now with Iran, and we'll talk about Iran in a bit. But why is it that Russia, let's say North Korea, China, any of these people, Iran, anybody does anything in the entire rest of the world, and suddenly it's, oh my God, it's an atrocity. How could the poor people, I mean, again, what we'll talk about in Iran with the protests and stuff, of just, it's such an atrocity of what these monsters could do to oppress their own citizenry, despite the fact that the United States has invaded essentially the entire world, has bases in, 900 bases plus in like over 100 countries worldwide? Yeah. But
Yeah, some
again,
of the
it's Russia. It's Russia, man. They're the threat to global stability.
some of
Yeah.
the propaganda is just so obvious. Like there was one the other day on the BBC. It's just so blatant. It's like
Yeah.
baby cries as people try to flee the Russia because they've been conscripted to the army, and then the article actually says this is on the BBC website. It sounds like a baby's crying as someone is, it's just like what this is just emotive sentence to follow the narrative. It's
Get the
just
lowest common
ridiculous.
denominator. And unfortunately, because they understand most people out there don't even really keep up with the lie. Most people don't. It's just that as long as it gets written about and as long as, hey, sorry, cat scratching herself. But as long as people keep buying the narrative of what's written about, once it becomes canon, codified in the history books, which is all they care about, of having their narrative around long enough that it can be codified and then it becomes the new history. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then the war machine goes on until suddenly the propaganda that we all knew was propaganda bullshit becomes some of the most important moments of the 21st century. I mean, Scott, we'll never forget the heroes of Snake Island. Russian warship, go F yourself. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kieran has just sent a message. Did you hear about the Russian who got banned from Twitch for just showing his gas stove? I was just having a quick look at the story. Apparently, he was this evil Russian was live streaming, and he had his gas stove working, just evilly burning all that gas just to annoy the rest of the world because there's a gas shortage in other countries. So what an evil Russian that was. Yeah.
What kind of insano mental gymnastics crap is that? There are some people in the world that are going without, and you recorded yourself not going without. You monster. This literally sounds like collectivism insanity. And as much as I hate the Russian state government, and I do use the word hate deliberately, Russia overall culturally is way closer to a place I would identify with where human beings live. I mean, the government pays people to have babies there, Scott. There's a lot of problems I have with the government of Russia, but culturally they seem to be less of an armpit shit stain of the entire world than the West right now, which is how much woke stuff do you see coming out of Russia? How much woke stuff do you see coming out of China? How much woke stuff do you see coming out of Iran? I don't know if you see any Black Russian historical figures turned into movies recently, or any Russian or any Chinese or Iranian historical figures that have been race and gender swapped for movies recently, because wokeness doesn't exist for these people because it is simply their culture, their history, their identity. We are having our culture, our history, our identities collectively of all these different groups and peoples stripped from us and replaced with utter turd. Just the worst stuff you can imagine, man, to the point that people will cry over the Queen of England, where men like Johnny Rotten, that you used to think were, yeah, punks, man, rock on, dude, are the most absolute bootlicking swine you've ever seen. Because, I mean,
most people in the music industry.
Well, of course, because they already got their paychecks. And I mean, so many of them were willing to be knighted. How many people out there had the balls to refuse that? Almost all these assholes are like, ooh, I'm Sir Elton John. Oh, well, hoity-toity for me, sir. Like,
he got an award. He got an award from the US the other day, didn't he?
Yes, I do believe so. I think it was like, what the hell is it? It's not like Presidential Medal of Freedom, but it's some or crap like that. It's some ridiculous recognition thing. Because, of course,
a thing that you get if you're rich and famous, by the looks of it.
Exactly. Because you notice with any of these, they never want to like promote people that are smaller artists or politically provocative artists that are promoting things that are edgy in other countries or in their own, God forbid, right? No, it's always just the same hackneyed crap. And if you notice with guys like Elton John, it's stuff that's been around since the goddamn 70s, man. And no offense to somebody that's old enough to appreciate it, but dude, it's the same people, the same message, the same actors, the same political leaders that have been here since the 70s. Hell, in the case of Joe Biden, since the 60s. Hell, in the case of the Queen, it's the same person that's been around since what? The 30s?
How is Biden, by the way? He still seems to be like messing up his speeches a lot. And
Yeah.
I don't think we've spoken about that draconian speech he gave.
Oh, with
While, yeah,
the
well,
pillars, like
with the
Jeshim
pillars
and
and the
Boaz or
military
whatever.
stand in
Yeah.
the background. I mean, what
No.
was that about? That was
It was very Masonic imagery, very warlike fist pounding imagery. Because of course they realized he's seen as a joke by everybody. So some of his handlers decide he needs to look tough, and they go to cartoonish lengths to make him look tough. And it is, it's teeth-eatingly cringe, man. Until you hear him say that the pandemic is over and all this. Yes, it's all over. Then why are people still being fired across the country by tens of thousands for not taking the shots? Why
yeah.
is it that there are still mask mandates around the country and around the world that people have to deal with? Why are there businesses still promoting this exact insanity? And you still see thousands and thousands of people in public, especially if you go out to some place that actually has like public transportation or anything, and then everybody else still have people wearing masks, still like afraid of human contact, won't touch doorknobs or anything like that. Just oh god, I don't want to get the disease. You got
Well,
the Rona, man.
there was a few things I was going to share on the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, look at this. COVID, Hong Kong to end controversial hotel quarantine. Mandatory hotel quarantine. Travelers will also no longer have to show a negative COVID test before boarding a plane to Hong Kong. Instead, they will monitor themselves for possible. And yeah, I was gonna comment on that. Yeah, they try to make out that you're so lucky to get your freedoms back. It's like, no, this was all ridiculous. The whole world being shut down over a flu, basically, and even Bill Gates came out and said exactly that some months back. He actually said, almost word for word, we didn't realize it was just like the flu. So anyone who says, "Oh, you can't compare it to the flu," no, I can. It was just like the flu, and it's been what's happened over the past 3 years has been so ridiculous that you'd have to be brain dead not to realize. Let's say hello to a few people in the chat. Gormonger 2, hello everyone. Welcome, Gormonger.
Of course, Kieran, Don't Cry
Kieran,
Masha.
Don't Cry Masha, which is Sergey. Peppy Epstein, who's been a listener for
Honestly,
years.
the truth. Yep.
Honestly, the truth. Yeah, got here early today. Honestly, the truth. It's good to see you, Bob, as well. I will play a track from Bob called Bob's track, music track we'll be playing today is called Gary the Brainwashed Slave. So we'll listen to that in a while. But I would like to remind everyone in the chat, please keep your comments coming in. Let us know what you've been looking at in the news. And as usual, this is the idea behind this show, and I hope it will kind of pick up eventually, is that we want to hear from you as well. We don't need like loads of people calling in, but it would be good to have a few more people come and talk to us. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. Put on a headset or something. You can switch off your video to help with the bandwidth, because my bandwidth's pretty low today because there's a storm going on. Here's the link if you want to come and join us. And you can just come and say a few things if you want, just like literally 30 seconds. Just say hello. We love to hear from people. And we can comment on what you're talking about. The Truth Sentinel cat looks like it's getting a bit restless over there. Honestly, the truth says, Scott, have you seen AI art? I haven't, but I have heard about it. In fact, I think I saw you comment on it on your Facebook page, Seth.
Yes, indeed.
Can you tell us a bit more about AI art?
It's been absolutely incredible to learn about, both like frightening on some levels, but then at the same time, seeing how it can be used as a tool is absolutely incredible. AI art has been sold for, I believe it was something like $100,000+ at auction.
But so has Hunter Biden's. Hunter Biden's art's also been sold for that.
Yeah, but and of course you could say modern day impressionistic art, which isn't necessarily that impressive from a traditional artistic standpoint. But at the same time, who are you or I or whoever to look down on somebody else's inspiration and expression of human emotion? AI art has gotten to the point where, as far as skill, it's still kind of hit or miss. But if you know what you're typing in for the algorithms and how to play them out and everything, you can get absolutely incredible results, to the point that some of it, as long as and they still don't do realistic human faces for the most part. Almost every single program is purposely cropped out the ability to do that because celebrities and politicians and all sorts of different famous people, like the fact that some of the first things when you ask somebody, oh, come up with just ask anything to come up with, they'll be like, oh, the Queen of England getting run over by a bulldozer, something like that, right? Like, so they don't allow you to do things quite like that, but within reason, you can have almost anything that you can imagine of, like, I want a picture of a tortoiseshell cat in the style of Eugene Delacroix romanticism art. Boom. You will have 4, 6, 10, whatever pictures in that style. And yeah, some of them are miss because AI art still, it's not a human being. So some things
Wait a
are
minute,
still
Seth,
wonky.
this sounds like it's going to put
artists out of
work.
Yeah, but don't worry, not truly skilled human artists, only beginners. Concept artists are also pretty effed
there
in
goes
the A.
my art career.
Let's be real.
Keep talking for a couple of minutes, Seth. I've got to let this cat out.
Okay. For a moment, we're going to cover a story that's a little bit different. I mean, we're going to get back to the more serious stuff, but this is something that I just had to cover that sounds like absolute clown world. This is out of NBC15news.com. Widow found not guilty of murdering husband after stabbing him 89 times. This is from the 22nd, so I mean 3 days ago, but Houston, Texas. A grandmother who was accused of murdering her husband and then setting her house on fire when she was arrested has been found not guilty. Janet Alexander, 72, was acquitted Tuesday of the murder of Lionel Alexander, 64. The trial lasted 6 days. On April 27th, 2018, when Houston police were called to a home in Valley Wind Drive on the city's East Drive, Lionel Alexander had been stabbed to death. Janet told the police the couple had been arguing and things escalated. You know, as they do. He had a knife, she said. She took control of it and acted in her self-defense after decades of abuse. 89 times. Houston police confirmed that they had been called to the home previously. An autopsy revealed Lionel Alexander was stabbed 89 times. A year later, a grand jury indicted Janet Alexander, and when police went to serve the arrest warrant in April of 2019, she set herself and the house on fire, nearly burning it to the ground. Alexander's criminal defense attorney, Joe Wells, said that years of suffering led to what he said was a suicide attempt at the time of her arrest. He said the jury reached the correct verdict. She suffered so much abuse from him, both physical and emotional. It was quite shocking. Wells said, she just finally snapped. She couldn't take it anymore. And when he threatened her, she decided it was finally time to fight back. Looks like he had his story absolutely laced up for her, man. Wells said the couple's children supported her during the trial and that afterwards, members of the jury said they were surprised she had not fought back sooner. The couple was married for more than 40 years. I'm sorry, but this is utter fucking insanity. She murdered that guy. She murdered that guy. She murdered that guy. Oh my God, she murdered that guy. And only because people are such spineless pieces of shit, panty waist losers is this bitch out and about walking around. I don't give a fuck, lady. Come and sue me, man. Come and say something. I'm saying you're a fucking murderer. She stabbed him 89 times. And people are like, no, man, that wasn't murder.
Maybe it was
that
an
was self-defense. It was self-defense, man. It was self-defense. You know how when you somebody's trying to like pull out a gun and you're wrestling with them for the control of the gun, and in self-defense you shoot them 47 times. Yeah, in self-defense. Yeah, and they're already dead, and you reload, load up the magazine again, pop it in, load chamber around, boom, 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 boom.
Oops, I did it again.
Yeah, self-defense, man. I had to share that with you guys because that's such the je ne sais quoi of clown world that we live in.
We do live in clown world. And you could say that a lot of people are brainwashed as well. And I think now might be a good time to have a small interval, and I'll play Gary the Brainwashed Slave,
Nice.
which I think probably is a song about all the people out there who just seem to be doing exactly what the media tell them, putting on their masks, socially distancing, supporting whoever they've been told to support, just following the next thing the media have told them to do. That's what this song's about. So I'm just going to cue that up. This is a time to go and make a coffee, maybe get yourself ready to come and say hello to us. I've put the link in the chat there. So let me just try and queue up this song if I can find it, and then we'll have a little break and continue after the break. Let me just see, where is it? Okay. And just a reminder before I play this that we're going to play Seth's music on here. There is someone wrote to me. I think his name was what was his name? Just a second. Senses. Maybe it's more like a kind of nickname. Senses asked me to play some of his music. I'm going to do that next time. Here's Gary the Brainwashed Slave in the meantime.
Slave believes what he sees on CNN, BBC. Gary the brainwashed slave, useless eater, swallows propaganda in the media theater, cannot think for himself, he doesn't know where it's at, more than happy to be a non-essential lab rat. Gary the brainwashed slave, unaware he's surrounded by mindless idiocy, deception and lies. Gary the brainwashed slave, he's got the heart of a Nazi, case of Stockholm syndrome, he cannot see, cannot think for himself, he doesn't know where it's at, more than happy to be a non-essential lab rat, cannot think for himself, he doesn't know where it's at, more than happy to be a non-essential lab rat. Gary the brainwashed slave, Gary the brainwashed slave, Gary the brainwashed slave, Gary the brainwashed slave.
That was awesome.
So, Gary the Brainwashed Slave really does sum up the reason why we've had all the problems over the last few years, and just in general. I mean, we need some of these people to stop being so stupid. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. I mean, some of the things that have gone on over the last few years are just ridiculous.
Now, what Bob said at the beginning of the show of still an uncomfortable amount of Garys out there, unfortunately, is, yeah, pretty on point, man. Pretty on point.
Yeah, nice one, Bob, and keep the music coming. There'll be more from Bob. I put the links to his channel there as well. Oh, James says, Seth, you look younger. That's a bit of a compliment.
It's entirely just because I shave, man. Normally, I look a bit like a woods bum, so I decided to clean up.
Yeah, it looks good anyway. You're getting some compliments there. Kieran says, "Nice one. Not sure this is going to make the top 10. Yeah, it's a shame. It would be good if it did, though." Yeah. So again, keep the music coming in if you're a creator, or maybe you do some art, or maybe even some AI art. Send it in. We'll show that as well. We want our listeners to get more involved with this particular show.
For sure.
So yeah, if there's anyone out there who wants to come and join us today, then I've put the link in the chat. You can come and join us and make your comment. You can also comment in the chat itself. I did also want to mention, because I know there's probably some people who are listening who aren't actually in the chat, and there is a way that you can join us anyway. Basically, all you need to do is go to www.streamyard.com, then put a /, and then effectively this is the telephone number, which is, it's actually full of letters as well. So it's 3JNQTUD4QK. So if you wanted to join in, you can't actually see the chat. Then go to streamyard.com / and then type in 3JNQTUD4QK. I'll repeat that again later or something, but I just thought I'd try and introduce that concept in case there's people who can't read that.
We got some
keep your comments
articles
coming in.
We got some articles to discuss.
Seth.
No, you're totally cool. We got some articles to discuss. I wanted to hear some people's opinions on some of these too, because this is going to be interesting.
That's another thing we'll do. Yeah, let's ask for people's opinions about stuff, and you can give us your opinions in the chat, and we'll read them out. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to mention. There was an article on the BBC about. I don't watch the show myself, but there's a show. I don't know if you've heard of it, Seth, by RuPaul. It's like a drag queen kind of reality TV show.
Yeah, RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah,
Drag Race. Well, one of the winners, or I think it was one of the winners of that show, was called just a moment, Cherry Valentine, and typical drag name. She died a couple of days ago. And honestly, every time someone dies in the media, especially when they're young, like this person was, I think they were below 30, I think. When someone like that dies, I always go straight to their Twitter page, and I just check I want to find out, were they talking about the jabs? And this person was Cherry Valentine was basically telling everyone to get the jabs and saying they're entirely safe. But this person has now died of a unknown cause of death, which seems to be the major cause of death at the moment, is the unknown cause of death. And they obviously were jabbed. So it seems to be happening more regularly. And whenever someone dies, I go straight and check. And most of the time, it's the case is they are jabbed. So there has been other people collapsing again. A lot. There's definitely been an increase. I've noticed as well. There's been an increase in people collapsing, young people dying. I'm just going to share just one, just to show at the moment.
Well, just wait for the lunatics to try and come up with their rationale for what it actually was that killed these people. It's a new disease that you need to be vaccinated against. And it happens to be, we happen to own the patents for the vaccine already before we even knew what the disease was. Yeah, don't ask questions.
Yeah, so here's, this is happening on a regular basis now. Cadiz versus Barcelona stopped for over 20 minutes after fan collapses in the stadium. This is something that they're not going to be able to hide because when you've got 50 or 60,000 people in a stadium, if there are people who are regularly collapsing from blood clots and things like that, it's going to be visible because they're stopping games all the time now. This never used to happen. In my entire life, I never saw games being stopped for people collapsing in the crowd. This is happening on a regular basis in the UK and obviously this one was it was Barcelona that play. I'm not sure where it happened, but it's just happening a lot. There's something seriously wrong, and the media just keep saying that it's nobody. Doctors are baffled. So James says sleeping in front of the TV can probably kill you. If you suddenly die, don't be surprised. Yeah, that was one of the things that was mentioned, that actually watching TV, but which I actually agree with, that might kill you. Kieran says, everybody watch out. Death due to unknown cause can get you anytime, anywhere.
Well, here in the United States, they're saying the number.
showers.
Here in the United States, they're saying the number one cause of death amongst people 19 and younger is gun violence now. So again, I have a weird inkling it's not, but according to their numbers, it is. I also thought it was interesting that they pushed that number instead of being like people from 17 and down. So you're like, okay, children 17 and down. Okay. Instead, they go 2 years up. And I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure the 4,300 deaths you have per year, right, gun violence is almost entirely that 18 and 19-year-old group, considering that is key demographic age range for gang banging activity. Like that is the exact sort of people that you would expect to get murdered in stupid gang related crime, period. And yet, oh my God, think of the children. Also, the fact that these assholes want to call it somebody that's 19 or 18 a child now, when simultaneously these are people that would be tried as an adult in a court of law, that can join the U.S. military and go kill people abroad, that can be able to buy cigarettes, well, unless you're in some states, I guess now that's trying to push that. Buy a gun, buy any of this type of stuff. That's totally cool, totally reasonable, totally rational. But then when they die for political reasons, that people get to clutch their pearls and go, won't someone think of the children? Like, what kind of weird insanity are we stuck in? I swear to God, it feels like we're stuck in a Twilight Zone episode that never seems to end, and the twist just constantly keeps getting worse. Should we talk about the ridiculous novelty breasts on the teacher in Canada? Should we talk about that at all, or is that too clown world?
That was ridiculous. Yeah. No, let's talk about it. In fact, but we can't talk about at least having a picture because the nipples. Nipples on those.
That's what sold it. That's what sold.
They were worth looking at. Let me just what should I type in? Man,
Canada teacher like novelty
teacher,
breast. I don't know.
Prosthetic. I think they called them prosthetic.
I don't know, man. I've seen
prosthetic
women
breasts
that had mastectomies and stuff, and nobody goes for the whatever, like 35 or 36 double M cup prosthetic breasts after getting a mastectomy. That's
okay. I'm going to share. Just in case anyone hasn't seen this. Can you tell us a bit more about the story? What this was just a teacher was just in a school, and this is what they go to school like all the time.
Yeah, well, and the school district has already defended this person and has decided that guys in drag, because of course you have to respect people's identity and whatnot. That's what that's the law is written, and so of course we're getting to see the insanity of the law is written. Again, I have a feeling that while this is the current standard of crazy, we're going to see it get a lot worse, Scott. I have a weird feeling because the school district has rallied around it, defended it. Of course, people online are acting like, oh my God, what transphobes have problems with this? And I'm like, you think that's
I'm sorry,
okay?
but that would just be insane. I mean, imagine if that was your teacher at school.
Yeah, it's offensive. And you're like, Mr. Rogers has lost his mind. And last year he was Mr. Rogers. Now he's Miss Rogers. And Miss Rogers has giant fake novelty breasts that are just smacking everything out the way. And
I guarantee you,
what a nice lady.
I guarantee you, in the same school, they'll be like, "Oh, Sarah, could you not wear your hair done up
shorts
in a bun?
Because they're too short? Can you not wear your shirt that's too tight?
Shoes?
Can you not wear that shirt because it's too tight and we can see too much going on there when this is walking around? That's what I mean by clown world insanity, to the point that it's like a Twilight Zone episode with like the pig-faced people, man.
In the same school, they'll be telling students, you didn't wear a tie today, John, so we're going to have to tell your parents.
Dress code.
Well, you've got this creature with these giant nipples. I mean, this is someone who's clearly got
deranged.
Some mental issues. Yeah.
Well, like I said, man, I have a feeling that we're going to reach a point within, I know this sounds dark, but hopefully many people I care about that are older than me are already gone from this world by the time this sort of stuff starts happening. But I have a bad feeling it's not going to be, and most of y'all are going to be drugged down into this horrifying hell with me of situations like this with this teacher right here. But now it's a furry. But now it's a guy walking around wearing an animal tail butt plug, going to class to teach and whatnot, because
No, there's
you have to
nothing wrong with
respect
that,
my
Steph.
identity.
There's nothing
That's
wrong
where
with
we're
that.
going. A guy that dresses up like a freaking fish and is going around and like creeping up, boop, 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 boop. Like, we're gonna see horrors beyond our comprehension, man. It's reaching that point where it's challenging the bonds of insanity. Oh yeah, I'm sure those students were insanely uncomfortable. That's why they, as honestly the truth says, that's because they filmed it and put it on the internet, complaining to people literally as a cry for help because the staff won't do anything to stop this. So they at least think they can get a public outcry to do something about this. And yet, come on, you don't want to be a transphobe now, guys. Come on.
I mean, I seriously,
themselves.
I think there have been protests about here, but
yeah,
look, I'm fairly easygoing. Like,
well, I don't care what you want to do on your own time, but like, this is insane.
If I had a kid in that school, I'd be like, no, I'm sorry, that is just too weird.
When your fake breasts are bigger than the goddamn circular saw that you're standing right next to, then maybe maybe just tone it down. Maybe you're like a 15 right now. Maybe turn it down to like a 5. Maybe turn it down to like a 5.
As Kieran says, at the very least, surely there's a health and safety issue. I'd say with those boobs next to the circular saw, you've got those things could explode, surely.
Oh man, anyway. Clown world. God, yeah. I'm glad that I got.
Let me get that image off the screen so people don't have to look at it.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
We'll get back to more normal news, I guess, or stuff that compared to things like that, or the woman stabbing her husband 89 times that didn't commit murder.
Let us tone things down a bit. I wanted to have a quick look at this because I just thought it was kind of interesting. Let me just show it to you. Hang on a second. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier in my preamble about this CIA museum inside the world's most top secret museum. And it says it's perhaps the most unusual and exclusive museum in the world, filled with artifacts that have shaped history, but its doors are firmly shut to the public. It's the only place
like the Smithsonian.
Yeah, you can see the gun found with Osama bin Laden when he was killed next to Saddam Hussein's leather jacket. Welcome to the CIA secret in-house museum. But it says here, a small group of journalists, including the BBC, were given exclusive access. And I just thought, well, all this is like they want the journalists to come in and then tell the public, oh, we saw Osama bin Laden's gun, and there's probably little explanations, and it's just literally we want to feed the journalists.
It's terrible, bad propaganda, and they get it presented in a way that they're, ooh, this is regal. I'm getting to go to the private exclusive reserve. You peasants wouldn't understand when they're looking at a terrible little crappy model that somebody made, a leather jacket they got from whatever Kohl's or some freaking clothing store, department store, that they then bring out and they go, this is Osama bin Laden's, or this is Saddam Hussein's leather jacket. Oh,
so instead of overtly contacting the BBC and saying you need to run this story because this is what we want people to believe. Yeah, they literally they just tempt these journalists and say we won't. This is secret. We don't want the peasants.
These journalists are the sort of people that snort their own farts, man. They are literally those sort of people who just, oh yes, I'm the fanciest of all. They think they're so much better than the rest of us. They're like the middle management politicians that, like Nancy Pelosi's of the world, that think that they're, oh yes, I'm at the elite of the elite. When in reality, somebody like King Charles is actually at the top of that hegemony, and all these little hacks, these little like barnacles that want to act like they're something, that they're worth anything, when in reality they're just going to get scraped from the hull of the ship like anybody else.
The CIA propaganda museum,
a Stasi
for stupid journalists, so we can massage their ego. It'd be a long title, but to massage their ego, so they can pump out the propaganda to the public.
Doesn't it sound like something the KGB would have done in like 1975? They're like, yes,
they might have been too embarrassed, I reckon.
Yeah, to actually have it known publicly that this wouldn't be something that you'd figure they would do this in secret and private and be like, these are private things that we've done. But instead they want to tell everybody it's public, but it's private, but it's public. To me, it sounds like more of their narrative reinforcement, which I want to tie in with something here that we have out of another government-run shill piece, Foreign Policy Magazine, the official magazine of the Council on Foreign Relations, one of the horrifying Hydra heads of the New World Order here. This is called China's War on History is Growing. This is going to be absolutely hysterical, guys, but just bear with me for a moment. The government is inviting snitches to report on, quote unquote, historical nihilism. On September 20th, popular Chinese live streamer Li Jiaqi, known as the Lipstick King for his impressive ability to push sales of lipstick and other makeup products, reappeared on Chinese streams for the first time in 3 months. Li had disappeared from the Chinese internet for the mistake he probably had no idea he was making. In the middle of his summer sales push on June 3rd, one of his employees brought out a cake in the shape of a tank. Alas, June 4th is the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre of 1989, and the Chinese authorities relentlessly police any hint of commemoration. Li and many of his fans were born after the massacre occurred. They may not have even been aware it happened. China has long policed historical memory, deleting and rewriting references to past atrocities and insisting on adherence to official narratives. As President Xi Jinping said in a speech last year, quote, "No history. Love the party." Today, that relentless censorship is increasingly focused online. Ahead of the critical 20th Party Congress starting on October 16th, the Cyberspace Administration of China, CAC, is inviting netizens, whatever the hell that means, to snitch on those guilty of historical nihilism. The term has been used by officials for decades, but it was given new importance when it was listed as one of the 7 ideological threats that the party faces in document number 9, which was leaked in 2013 and hinted at Xi's intellectual agenda as he began his tenure as party chairman. According to the document, historical nihilism is, quote unquote, tantamount to denying the legitimacy of the CCP's long-term political dominance. Sounds kind of like they're accusing people of Holocaust denialism or something along those lines, in the sense of you're denying my historical legitimacy or my historical event and thus must be destroyed. I mean, it's just, the reason I'm laughing at this is because the United States does literally this on almost every single issue. What the hell was the COVID narrative and all of this, of the shots and everything, of like, you will toe the line or you will be crushed. But oh my God, guys, China. Look at China. They're trying to rewrite history, guys. Yeah, the United States has never done that. United
That's
States
the thing.
never
The
done
media
that.
always mock countries like North Korea, Russia, and stuff for propaganda, but they're just as bad, you know.
Oh, yeah. If not worse. If not worse.
If
Because
not
their
worse,
history
yeah.
of this is longer, period. The United Kingdom and the United States have been pushing out that kind of war propaganda stuff and controlling the narrative through the intelligence agencies for longer than Russia or China has been, period. In fact, Russia and China took many of the practices they have adopted and have since refined from America and England and the, what is it, OSI or OSS and the like MI6 and the CIA, and taking their control, like political dissident control techniques and how they use propaganda and everything in order to put it upon their own citizens. And then you get the Project Mockingbird or Operation Mockingbird CIA like puppet media that's going to tell you exactly regurgitated word for word what they want you to hear, while going, oh my God, those monsters in China, those monsters in Russia, they're historical revisionists. Yes, they are. So are you. Y'all are monsters. Can't stand you. Would like to see all of your governments toppled and turned into tiny little dustical particles that no one even remembers in 1,000 years. I think it would be perfect. But, you know, that's just me. That's just me.
Turn them into a goat.
Oh, well, I mean, Scott, the only reason she had the goat there is because she's the greatest of all time. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
That was the goat. Yeah. Yeah. It was just for the acronym purposes. It's not at all because that was the sacrifice they were going to do for their Dark Lord Elizabethary. a
Yeah.
lizard Beth, as she bursts out of the human-shaped husk that she was hiding in as a horrifying lizard monster and scurries through the crowd, chupacabra style, to grab the goat, suck the blood out of its neck, and then scurry into the royal wilderness.
There was another article on the BBC today about they've made a piece of stone to commemorate the life of the Queen, and they're charging people £28.50 to go and have a look at it.
Oh, that's so cringy.
And did you know that people were queuing for 24 hours and
Yes.
sleeping overnight just to see the Queen's coffin, which I'm
Yep.
sure she wasn't in?
Well,
I
yeah,
guarantee
no
you she
doubt,
wasn't
no
in.
doubt. You totally get it, like, because of course she's not.
If she's even dead, or
exactly.
or if maybe she died 10 years ago, there was definitely something a bit weird about how they presented her death. It was like they built up to it 2 days in advance. It seemed like I actually wouldn't be surprised if she didn't die that particular day. She died a couple of days before, or even years
Because
before.
they're so fake. That's just it.
Mm.
Exactly like you said. They're so fake that they would literally, even if she died, put 4 days before they say she died, they would still, nope, everything is completely fine. Keep calm, carry on, chip, keep stiff upper lip and all that. And
Gary
then
the Brainwashed Slave was a good song to play to talk about the royalists. I mean, the fawning over the Queen, it was just
the
on
queue was
another
one of the
level.
saddest things I've ever seen. That queue of people going along, what is it, the Thames, that they're just like just going,
Right,
going,
the Pied
going,
Piper,
going.
yeah. To see a coffin, oh my goodness.
Ugh.
We're probably going to have to wrap this up again soon, but we'll bring anyone last comments coming in the chat. Please go ahead. I wanted to. This was an article on the BBC today. The only decent article that maybe off-gridders take energy needs into their own hands. There's an article here. Of course, the BBC has to say that this is all because of climate change. People are they're trying to escape the coming collapse of society and the world because of climate change. But apart from that, I would say this kind of idea of becoming self-sufficient is the way to go. I really wish I had the money to do it. And in fact, that's another thing I wanted to quickly mention here. Look, I rarely do requests for donations. I don't really care about money that much. But there is a I am very broke at the moment. There is a situation. This StreamYard, the reason why we can stream on StreamYard at the moment without having all the banners and without having, don't know if you remember it before, but it wasn't good. But you have to pay a certain amount every month to get what I've got now. Well, I've run out of money, and it actually the direct debit bounced to this StreamYard this month. So look, if there is anyone out there, and I'm only talking about people who've got a lot of money and can afford it. I'm not talking about anyone who struggles every month. I'm just saying, like, if there are people out there, you can go to this link, which I don't often share. You can go to this link and you could donate even just like $1 or $2 every month, and it will actually pay for StreamYard at the very least. I'm going to find the link in a minute and post it to you. Yeah, it does help. It help. There are a couple of hidden costs, like the Truth Sentinel website, the StreamYard streaming, and a few other things that I have to pay for each month. And I'm living, most months I'm living on the edge. I've actually run out of money. I'm borrowing money off friends at the moment. I don't have savings. So if you can afford a little bit each month, or even a lump sum, then please do send them. Damn it, I did save the link earlier. I will come across it. Keep talking,
Okay.
Seth, while I look
keep
for
looking
this.
it up. I've got like 4 news articles here, but I can just chop them up to the top little bits on it. We have Iran summons Western envoys out of Russia today. Tehran summoned the British and Norwegian ambassadors over their country's hostile and interventionist support for protests. The Iranian Foreign Ministry summoned the British and Norwegian ambassadors on Sunday amid anti-government protests broadly supported by the West. British envoy Simon Shercliffe was asked to explain the quote-unquote hostile tone of UK-based Persian media, while Norway's Sigvald Haug was questioned over the interventionist stance of Norway's Iranian-born parliament speaker Musad Garakhani. Iran's ISNA news agency reported on Sunday Shercliffe was summoned over Britain's hosting of Iran International, Monado TV, and BBC Persian. Iran International reported based in London and funded by Saudi Arabia. Iran International's pro-opposition line has been Tehran's ire before, and the network has been accused of bias by its own reporters. The ministry views these British-hosted outlets as interfering with its international affairs. There's a whole lot more we could talk about with that, but we're going to get on to some other stuff. I really, though, to anybody getting into this, while, yeah, you know, protests that are legitimate, but to pretend that there is no incentive that all these different Western countries have to create an opposition party to be able to completely take away any sort of cultural identity that Iran still has, to be able to destroy any sort of like opposition to the West, it's, I don't know what to tell you, man. I got a bridge to sell you somewhere if you really think that this is entirely grassroots on its own. I mean, come on, it's just for the women, Scott. You could see it. I mean, it's the veils protest. I mean, they even had a name for it and everything. It's just they're protesting veils and, you know, Islamic extremism and whatnot. Yeah, okay, sure, I believe it. Then we have also out of RT real quick here, UK to double military spending amid cost of living crisis. The defense secretary cited Russia's offensive in Ukraine and justifying the increased expenditure. Britain will boost its military spending considerably in the coming years, Defense Secretary Ben Wallace has revealed, despite the fact that the nation is facing an economic crisis stemming from COVID-19 measures and London's sanctions on Moscow. In an interview with Sunday Telegraph published on Sunday, Wallace said the British government will shell out at least £52 billion, $56.5 billion to shore up the military, which is, quote unquote, actually going to grow. The plans are in keeping with Prime Minister Liz Truss's campaign promise to boost defense spending. God dang. According to the official,
let's talk about that for a minute, because the war, I would say, if listening to lots of other channels, the general consensus in the alternative media is that war is escalating, is going to become a lot more serious in the coming months. To the point of nuclear war, and I actually think I think that's true. I think we are already in World War III, and it's just going to escalate. And I think it will be coming to people's shores. I think that's the big change that's going to happen. I mean, Putin. I still think Putin's, and they're all in on it together. But the narrative at the moment is Putin is conscripting people. So he's obviously, the war's escalating anyway. And it's being done in such a way that no one seems to care. And the nuclear option is a very credible one. I think it could well happen. And I think you're going to possibly see attacks happening in Europe as well. In the UK, probably in the USA.
Well, let's not forget the West has bioweapons labs in Ukraine that they've been caught with now at this point. And so it would be naive of us to assume that they wouldn't be willing to release some sort of horrifying bioweapons upon the Russian sphere. And
also, the war, the escalation of war, nuclear war, it's going to be a great cover or just a distraction for if these deaths do increase because of the jabs and because of the complete mess the world's in. And the pandemic and all the effects of that, it'll just be a nice bow to tie everything up with. So, that I think it's going to become pretty serious over the coming 6 months to a year, anyway.
Well, U.S. oil reserves have reached their lowest level in 4 decades, according to marketplace.org. So, I have a feeling the United States is going to have a little bit harder time providing support for Europe in this, despite, the U.S., everybody's idea that the U.S. is so big and so vast and so powerful, it'll be able to afford having bases in, over 100 countries worldwide. And it's like something like 900, 1,000 plus bases. It's some insanely high number. They can't afford to continue operating this for indefinitely. They've already started running out of oil reserves. They're not going to have electric power on a grid where they can take care of all of their outlets worldwide or all of their installations worldwide. The United States is going to start collapsing as far as a military power in the middle of World War III. So it'll be interesting to see where things go, to say the least. God forbid I'm in a country that ends up being the Germany of World War III.
Well, what I was thinking, if the internet goes down, which could well happen if there's any kind of nuclear war which affects multiples, Can you imagine the effect that's going to have? It's just, I mean, I'll be out of work instantly.
Yeah.
It'll be mayhem, basically. So
It'll
many
be
people will be
chaos,
out
man.
of work.
Most families
Communication
will
will
be
be shut
completely
down. This show
disconnected.
won't be going on.
Yeah.
So again, I think like we finished a lot of shows because we need to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I would say preparation for the possibility of society collapsing is probably the way to go. Just try think about what you would do in certain situations if the power goes down, if the internet goes down, if you lose access to your bank. Just think about just try and take measures now before it happens. I think it's only wise to do that, and at the same time, not to panic because we're all going to die eventually anyway, and we just need to make the best of it while we're down here.
Well, and also people need to keep in mind that not be emotionally cajoled into whatever the next big lie is. And of course, they're going to decide that it's going to be something horrific. That'll be, let's say, China blows up a American cruise ship and kills 5,000 people. Or some ridiculousness like that, right? Like Russia releases anthrax in the streets of Detroit. Something crazy, right? And they'll do it. They'll do it. Our government will 100% do it. Will 100% false flag all of it, fabricate everything, and then they'll have their narrative to go marching with like thousands and thousands of troops overseas to go try and kill people, oust one regime, put in a new one. Although part of me that's the total 1984 cynic doesn't know that these actual forces are truly fighting each other and that these military like buildups aren't for us, aren't directly for us and putting us in concentration camps.
Maybe, who knows?
Stay in Thailand, Scott. At least it's warm.
Yeah. No, honestly, I would love to stay here. I would absolutely love to stay here. Honestly, I feel like I'm on one of the best places on earth just to see out the pandemic, to see out any possible nuclear war. There's food all around us and the trees. It's a great place to. I swear, if there was a nuclear war going on here, there'd still be parties going on the beach. It's yeah, it's a really good place to be to kind of step away from things. What was the first terrorist attack on America? You can answer that one, sir.
We'll actually talk about that at some point. The Black Tom Island explosion is what they say is the first terrorist attack in American history in like 1916, June 4th, something like that. Yeah, it's weird because it's something I'd never heard of before, never been told about, and it's actually what they supposedly used to pass the Alien and Sedition Acts, which have been the very first version of the 9/11 Patriot Act insanity.
What about the Statue of Liberty? Why was the torch closed?
I don't. There's random questions. Because I don't know. I don't know.
Is it closed at the moment?
I believe it is still.
Maybe there's a structural issue. So if anyone goes up there, they might fall from
well,
the.
Supposedly it's been closed since like the 80s. So I mean that was a big one, and it's supposed to be like corrosion or some crap.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we'll answer any question here. Just keep your questions coming in, but we will be finishing in a couple of minutes. Yeah. So any final comments, please let us know. I just wanted to mention again that if we do get kicked off YouTube or that goes down, or the whole internet goes down, when it comes back up again, try and find www.truthsentinel.co.uk. I need to go on there and clear out this hacking thing that's going on at some point. Again, a reminder, I do appreciate any donations, and I forgot to mention anyone who's listening that can't see the chat. You can just go on YouTube, click on the About section, and you'll find the donation button there. Otherwise, you can email me at scottsentinel9@gmail.com, scottsentinel9@gmail.com, to send any music or anything like that, or to make some suggestions. Do appreciate you joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. It does make a difference when we get some feedback from you. Any final comments from you, sir?
Why was the Statue of Liberty's torch closed? I mean, like I see the word liberties there, and I'm like, that is the most American spelling of liberties I have ever seen. I love it. I love it.
Mm.
But anyways, my last closing comments would be something along the lines of love yourself, love your family, love your friends, love people that are close to you, and take care of them and appreciate them, appreciate your life, appreciate what's good about it, because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Look after your cats. A mailbox address. Oh, you mean for sending things? I don't really use post much these days. What were you thinking of sending? Let me know by email if there was something you were thinking of sending by post, if that's what you mean. And I'll give you details. So if there is something you wanted to send by post, please send me an email at scottsentinel9@gmail.com, and I'll give you the address if you need that. Maybe it's a birthday present. It's my birthday in a couple of weeks.
Right on, man.
Yeah, 1 year older. We've gone through a lot since this show started. How many years ago? Must be
7.
Yeah, it must be 7. Yeah.
Yeah,
let's
man.
hope there's another 7 years. So anyway, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Hope you all have a good week. Oh, thanks, James. James just donated a tenner there.
Thanks, man.
I wanted to also mention that if you make a donation and you don't want your name mentioned, because I have had that in the past, do let me know, because I do want to thank you. But if you don't want your name mentioned or anything, then that's fine too. Let's finish with a little bit of positivity. So I wanted to say that although the world's going completely insane, just remember that you can step away from it just by literally going to a lake, going to a beach, going to a party, getting drunk. Actually, I confess, last week the show was cancelled because I got drunk. So I was actually practicing what I preached there.
Oh,
But maybe
Scott,
I
we know
shouldn't
the
have done.
truth. You were grieving over Elizabeth. You were
Oh,
like,
God damn
my
it, I was
lady, my
crying.
lady, no.
Don't tell them. Yes, I was actually sobbing uncontrollably for an entire week because an old lady died that was very rich, and she never actually did anything for me, by the way. James says he's coming. Where's he going then? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're going. That's the main thing. Let me put the outro music on. And thanks for joining us, Seth. A pleasure
guys.
as always.
Pleasure to join you, Scott. You have a good one, man. Talk to you later.
Cheers. Yeah, I'm just going to try and play this outro music to try and pretend to be professional here. Just a second. I'm sure it's here somewhere. Probably labeled outro music. That'll be the giveaway. Oh, there we go. So bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.